2020 would turn out, and there is still a lot of uncertainty about the future. But we can try to evaluate where we are now and what we have currently and what do we know currently and start to consider how things might turn out in the post pandemic world. So, for the renewable energy industry, this presents a lot of very interesting questions. Will growth return to the same level as before? Will reliance on renewable energy grow even faster? Or will an economic downturn affect the investments? So here we are on yet another sunny day with Latoken VCTV. My name is Amit Das, Listings Manager with Latoken. Today's topic of discussion is investments and pivots in renewable and sustainable energy. So before we take a deep dive into the topic, we have panel members from all over the world. We have Tushar from India, Gary from USA, Kingsley from Japan, and Florian from Germany. So, yeah, let's have a brief introduction about each and a little background. Let's start from Florian. Over to you, Florian.
Thank you, Amit, for the introduction. Happy New Year to everyone, and glad to be back on the panel. So my name is Florian Goethe. I'm from Germany. I'm an investor in renewable energy and sustainability, and also now running a cryptocurrency called NECO, which is a stable currency for the common good, where our vision is to build a new financial system that serves the people and the planet.
Great, thanks. That was short and crisp introduction from Florian. Let's move on to Tushar. Tushar, a short introduction and a brief summary about you.
Thank you, Amit. It's a pleasure to be on this panel today with everyone. I run a company which advises clients on fundraise, specifically venture capital, and a large part of it is actually impact-based capital, which we direct to companies. We also advise on mergers and acquisitions and debt. In my experience of 20 years, I've worked for Deloitte and Touche private equity practice. I've also been part of the team at Brand Capital, that is India's largest venture capital fund by the number of deals, and also headed treasury at the Russian company Systema's India unit, where I raised almost $2.5 billion for the company, and been the CFO with DLI, that's a company owned by Guggenheim Partners. I also manage an angel fund called Saffron First with around 38 high net worth individuals. Glad to be on the show today.
Thank you, Tushar. Thank you. That was brief introduction about you. Gary, over to you. Gary from USA. We are excited.
Yeah, it's great to be here. It's great to see familiar faces, as I said earlier. So my name's Gary Fowler, and I'm a serial entrepreneur and investor. I've done 17 companies, soon to be 18, hopefully next week. And I love artificial intelligence and quantum computing, because AI is a new electricity, especially as we move from semi-supervised to unsupervised AI to manage the massive amount of data around us. I've been involved in 2 unicorns. I was on the original management team of Click Software, which was sold 21 months ago for $1.35 billion to Salesforce. I also am the co-founder of Viva.ai, one of the top AI HR tech companies that I founded in Silicon Valley with David Yang, a billionaire from Russia. And so he's Armenian, Chinese, Russian. So he's got a very unique background. Also started the first accelerator in Russia and the #1 private corporate accelerator. I write a lot about the AI and quantum. Actually, my new article in Forms is the quantum internet, and that'll be coming out next week. So writing a little bit about that. I'm a country boy from Pennsylvania, grew up on the side of a mountain, a 500-person village. So, we used to detassel corn and feed the cows and pigs and all that. So I'm a real simple guy when it comes to life.
Great, Gary. That was a short introduction about you, your life, and your investments so far. Thank you. Let's move over to Kingsley.
You're on mute, Kingsley.
Kingsley, you're on mute. Sorry, Kingsley, you're on mute.
Yeah, you can hear me now. Yeah, a pleasure to be here again. And you already know me. I'm a serial entrepreneur, investor, co-founder of founder of FBC Fund Time. Started my first company when I was 21, and I've been doing what I do best, is invest in clean energy, invest in health tech, invest in digital payment system, which are my major focus. And I've helped to structure several blockchain projects and not blockchain projects. So I'm glad to be here, and I'm going to take up that Fowler. I'm a small boy. I'm from a small village in Africa that moved 20 years in Japan. Japan has been very good to me. Thank you.
Okay, Kingsley, thank you very much for your introduction. So before we move on, I have a short message to all our viewers. So if you are a startup, then please face the investors. This is the fastest way to get a complete laundry list of objections that is required to reach your visions. So yes, before any further ado, let's move on with our session. We have a first question. So let's begin with the first questions as current market sentiment towards renewable and sustainable energy sector. Let's start from Tushar. Tushar, what are your thoughts on this?
Thank you, Amit. So the renewable energy sector has really grown from an investment of $50 billion in 2004 to current around $300 billion, which annually, which exceeds investment in fossil fuel by almost 3 times. It consists of solar, wind, others like biomass and biofuels, small hydropower, geothermal. Um, and in India, per se, we have a 450 gigawatt renewable energy target by 2030, out of which 90 gigawatts is installed as of now. And there has been an increase in almost 137% in this capacity. We also have 38 gigawatts of wind, 37 in solar, 11 in biopower, and 5 gigawatts in small hydropower. The relevance of renewable energy is also coming because the global spending on traditional energy like oil has decreased from $4 trillion in 2010 to less than $3 trillion now. So wiping off almost $1 trillion from oil. Similarly, there has been a dip in gas and coal. And most of the dramatic cuts have been in oil and gas sector, specifically in the highly leveraged shale players in the US. And the global investment in clean energy is almost $430 billion now, an increase of 38%. We are seeing a lot of investors here in India targeting renewable energy and in this region, even in ASEAN and Middle East.
Great. Thank you, Tushar. So Florian, what are your current market sentiment towards renewable and sustainable energy sector?
Yeah, this is the market I've been following for the last 10 years. So I'm a big believer in that market. I think it's coming, and as Tushar just mentioned, with detailed numbers, it's growing. And now we have in addition to the trend that we've seen over the last years, we have this major shift in the economy due to the Corona crisis, which in my opinion will lead to a change in the way we deal or we run our economy in general. We have a dramatic cut in carbon emissions, like the first time in human history that our emissions have gone down, not up. So a very positive trend, one of the positive sides of this virus is that we are burning less fossil fuels and less oil and gas. And that gives an opportunity to shift even faster into renewable energy. Also, we're seeing, a lot of businesses are coming down. These lockdown periods are causing a global recession, and in my opinion, also a collapse of the existing system. So there will be a lot of new things coming up that are more, towards new technology in the future. So I think, now is the right time to get invested into renewable energy and in general sustainable technologies.
Thank you, Florian. Gary, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, let's frame it in where we are today. So last last century, the average temperature went up 2 degrees Fahrenheit worldwide. At the same time, the population has increased over the last 100 years, 4x, to 8.1 billion, and forecast by the end of the 2100 to be around 13 billion. So we got a large population. At the same time, if you look at it, the projected increase in sea level could be 10 feet by the end of 2100. 10 feet. So look at the coastal cities of India, coastal cities of the US, Europe. I mean, we've got some serious challenges. A few years ago, I had the honor of being asked to work on a startup that was involved Irving Crick. Irving Crick was actually, at the time I met him, this was back in the 90s, actually, more than a few years ago. At the time we worked together, he actually had been a student of Einstein at Princeton University and opened up the meteorology department at Caltech. He actually was involved in the forecasting of Operation Argument and the invasion of Normandy during World War II. He's that old. And he is was a leading expert in weather forecasting. And he told me an interesting thing. This was in the 90s, in the mid 90s, that the challenge with this increase in weather, and he looked at weather as a non-linear based on patterns. And he said, based on the increases, the things are going to happen, like the Gulf Stream will slow down, which will affect the food supply. We're going to see hurricanes, instead of being at 180, 190 miles an hour, up to 250. We're going to have very strange weather patterns occur. And guess what? It started. So I'm encouraged, just like Florian had said, the Himalayas were seen for the first time in 30 years. So encouraging signs. It means the planet can heal, but at the same time, it's not like we should do it. We need to do it. We have to do it. If we're going to be able to survive on this planet, I mean, think about it, 2 degrees in the last century, 2 degrees. And as these polar ice caps melt and there's methane gas release, it'll completely strain our system. So there's a lot we can do, but the hope is, and the beautiful thing is that we are very resilient as humans to be able to overcome these objections, and we got to do it now. So battery technologies that were being developed. I'm a big proponent of all things electric, and including electric bikes. I got 6 of them. So there's a lot that we can do, but we need to it's not like, should we do it? And let's discuss it. We have to do it now. There's not enough potable water on the planet Earth also, drinking water. I remember Dr. Crick was saying water will be sold. This was in the 90s when you were still getting free water for dinner when you would go out, or lunch. He said it'll be sold in bottles, and then it'll be traded as a commodity. And guess what? It started.
All right, Gary. So, which brings me to one question: why can't we desalinize the water and drink it? I'll ask you this question later in this show today. So
Yeah,
please,
sure. I mean, I can answer it right now.
yeah, you can
whatever
you
you want to talk about it, because it's a massive project. It's not so easy, right? And the other thing was we're polluting the oceans. There's mercury. There's all kinds of things out there. So it's a matter of it's a process. It's a major process to do desalinization. It's not so easy. But
so go ahead, Gary.
Go ahead, Florian.
Yeah, Gary, you're mentioning it, and it requires a lot of energy. So I live half of my time. I live in Malta, a country that is so small, and on an island in the Mediterranean, it doesn't get much water. So they cannot feed their population with just rainwater. They have to desalinate water, and it doesn't taste well. The tap water you get there is just not very tasty and not very healthy, in my opinion. So desalination, I think, is a good technology, a good solution for the future, especially when you use it for agriculture to irrigate crops. But the key to that is to have sustainable and renewable energy to make it possible. Otherwise you're making the problem worse. You're burning fossil fuels to heat up the atmosphere even more, to desalinate water, to get more water back onto the land. So I think here is another reason why we need renewable energy.
Great, great.
So, Amit, I feel that whenever a decision is right in commercial terms, then the market forces, they come in and, it becomes a whole new market. So, I'm referring to what Flo said, what Gary said. Just as the price of solar panels started becoming so cheap that the price of solar power started becoming cheaper than oil and gas, and the whole phenomena started to pick pace. So, the same kind of democratization, the same kind of salience in prices has to come on the desalination side. Saudis, I heard they are quite big on desalination plants, but they can afford it till now. I mean, till the time oil and gas is flowing freely. How many countries can actually afford that kind of water? I mean, I put up in India where our water table is going down because the government is providing free electricity to farmers in many states. They use this free electricity to for tube wells and for taking out groundwater and using it for agriculture. That is unsustainable because the water table is going down. There is an artificial zero pricing on electricity. So, all these commercial decisions, but, I am a very firm proponent of believing in, that time comes right. And I'm sure just as lithium ion prices came down, just as solar panels pricing came down, similarly, there would be a better pricing in desalination plants as well.
I am actually happy that we are talking about this right now because 20 years ago, 10 years ago, the awareness was very small. The awareness that have come into the energy sector, the clean energy sector, is very big. People are becoming to realize from their day-to-day life that things are getting tougher. The climate is changing, it's getting hotter, it's getting worse all around the world. So people are more aware that we need to clean up the earth, we need to clean up the environment. We need to, even the younger generation are more prone to this in what they are doing. The fact that we are able to impart this knowledge on the coming generation means that they will be able to make those changes that we are doing right now. When you look at some countries, like you actually said, the affordability becomes the problem. It's not that they don't want to do it, but they cannot afford it. So that the fact that the prices are coming down and using what is around us, using using water, using wind, using different solar panels and things like that, would actually create a better future for our children's children. So for me, it is positive. I'm really happy about the way it is going. People are more aware of it. The other brother has been there for 10 years doing what he does best. And I'm happy to be investing in clean energy. And whatever support we can give, we should give that our children should have a better future, not the one we are having right now.
Thank you, Kingsley. Which brings us to the next question. Will the renewable energy and sustainable energy pose a threat to all the oil, gas, and coal sector? Let's start from Florian.
Yes, of course. Yeah, you see a lot of big investors, even investors like the Rockefellers, who were one of the initial investors behind Standard Oil, have moved their investments out of oil and gas. And, it's just not, it's just not good for your corporate social responsibility if you still invest in these technologies. So more and more companies and investment funds are moving out. So yeah, it's becoming a threat. And of course, that's something that has to happen. We have to get off oil and gas because we're running out and we can't afford to pump more carbon dioxide into the air. We should have stopped 50 years ago. So yeah, it's posing a threat and it's a very good thing to happen. This is competition and, one technology replaces another. That's just a normal process in the evolution of technology.
You're on mute, Amit.
Sorry. Tushar, what are your thoughts?
So, that's happening. I mean, we see Middle East countries adopting very different tones because they are seeing the writing on the wall that, they have to diversify their economies away from huge reliance on oil and gas. And the party cannot continue for a really long time. I mean, And it's quite ironical. I mean, these Middle East countries, they're the best source of direct sun. They're very hot countries. I mean, they should be the first ones where all these solar energy plants should be set up. And but that is happening. So wiping off of more than $1 trillion investment. Purchase of oil and gas within a span of 10 years is no mean joke. I mean, I firmly believe that one reason why Tesla stock is out of the zone, it's because it's in that particular space, and into that kind of critical energy, which people see as the technology of the future. And at these kind of stock prices for a company like Tesla is setting tone for other companies to jump in and driving that kind of investments. But Amit, you also mentioned apart from clean energy, you mentioned sustainable part also. And sustainable investing is an investment discipline that considers environmental, social, and corporate governance. So even if you look at it apart from environmental factors, then there are other social and corporate governance factors which are driving this kind of investment in these companies. So almost 1/3 of dollars under professional management in the US, which is almost $17.1 trillion, was managed according to sustainable investing strategies. That's a huge number. And the investor is very conscious that their investee companies should not get stuck in black swan events like some labor strikes or some ethical problems like Enron. And so they are very conscious of these aspects, and hence pushing in that kind of money to impact conscious companies.
Thank you, Tushar. Gary, what are your thoughts? Will sustainable and renewable energy pose a threat to the oil, gas, and coal sector?
Well, there's a principle called keep it simple, stupid, right? And so you don't have replenishing supplies of oil and gas, and you've got a lot of capability for renewable energy. So yes, if you look at companies like Shell, I mean, I've actually had discussions with their venture arm. I mean, they're looking for areas they can invest in. And if you look at the electric battery, the battery technology has dramatically improved. In fact, I'm actually going over today. I have one of the latest e-bikes, and I had a diagnostic issue with my battery, and bikes aren't the way they used to be anymore. So I'm taking it over. They are diagnosing it, but the batteries have had improvements on e-bikes anywhere from 10 to 30% every year. So, and the reason I'm saying it is because people are actually using them, especially during the pandemic, right? Bike sales are up 67, 68% worldwide. So we realize part of the problems, no matter what you have, is to be able to identify what the problem is and talk about what the ramifications of the problem. And we've got things like ice around the world, right? 40 billion tons were lost on average a year. And then in the last decade, it was 252 billion tons. That's a lot of ice to melt, right? I mean, when you get icebergs that are the size of small states floating around, it's a challenge. And so we understand that the problem exists. We've identified it. I mean, part of the challenge, if you look back in time, you got groups, large, wealthy families that really kiboshed any ideas around renewable. I mean, even in Florida, for instance, having solar panels on a house with batteries was not legal until just a couple of years ago. Now you're talking about a state that has, on average, 300 days a year of sunshine. So, the politics have started to line up, and here in the States now with Biden coming into office, it'll dramatically shift because the U.S. will move back to a more friendly, environmentally friendly environment and focus more on renewable energy. So sure, they have no choice. The politics have shifted. So these wealthy families that are out there and their funds are looking at areas to diversify.
So can I just add something over here? Um, sorry. In the US, 905 alternative funds that consider ESG criteria. They have invested almost $716 billion. I mean, that's huge. But I would like to give the example of a conglomerate here, Tata Group. It is one of the most respected groups in India since almost 100 years. It's a very old organization. They had a huge steel plant in Jamshedpur. They still have it, and it was managed on community lines. The whole family houses were built and stuff like that. When at a time the downturn in steel came, they took care of jobs of almost 40,000 people whom they actually wanted to. They could not keep on the books. They didn't take away the houses. They provided employment, and they really took care of these people. And the result is that Tata Group has such a good name in the market that when the government wanted to hand over some electricity distribution companies and were considering to hand over to private companies, they handed it many of them to Tata Group because they knew that it's a sustainable player and will keep ESG factors in mind.
Just to answer your question of is it a threat to the gas and oil sector? I think they need to adapt. Human beings need to adapt or die. We need to change. They have the funds to invest into clean energy. They made enough money from oil and gas till now by destroying part of the planet. I think it comes as a responsibility to them to invest what they have made from oil and gas into clean energy. And like Gary said, we don't really have a choice here. The only choice we have is to change. And my friend here said, most countries like in the Middle East and Africa that have this oil and gas have more than 8-10 hours sunlight every day, which means they are able to power their solar panels easily 24 hours a day without having to tap into oil and gas, thereby saving the world. So they have the opportunity to embrace. It's like when blockchain started, they said blockchain was a threat to the banks. But right now we see banks collaborating with different blockchain projects. So the same is going to happen with oil and gas. If they have no choice than to invest into clean energy, believe you me, they have the fund more than VCs and ordinary people to invest into that sector and make it work. And I think they have that responsibility.
Thank you, Kingsley. So let's move forward. So I'll ask this to the whole panel. So if you have the power to invest right now in clean and sustainable energy, what kind of investments would you make and what kind of projects would you choose? Let's start with Tushar.
Thank you, Amit. So it's no longer a choice. I mean, there is a study which says that investors are very conscious, regulators and governments are very conscious, and there's a growing recognition that ESG can potentially identify investment risks and generate excess returns. So if you look at the top S&P Standard and Poor 500 constituents, the top percentile, they rank high on social sustainability, and they have outperformed the bottom quartile, which are basically social laggards. So it's no longer a choice. But apart from renewable energy companies, I have a very interesting company which is my client. It's a business process outsourcing company. To give you an example, 40% of their employees are women. More than 50% are from those families who are quantified by the Indian government as socially backward. They take their employees from tier 2 and tier 3 towns. Even if an employee has failed in class 12th, they retrain them on their own cost and make them employable, give them enough skills. And such kind of company And the beautiful part is it is growing 12x every year. So, a company which is giving you returns and meeting serious impact goals. So, this kind of a company, and, a lot of impact investors with me are showing deep interest in this particular company as an example.
Thank you, Tushar. Florian, what would be your thoughts? What kind of investment would you make?
Yeah, so what I invested in, what I'm really excited about is solar roadways, turning roads into power plants because we have a lot of space and helps with other things. You make these roads intelligent. You can heat them. So if you have snow like we have out on that side, you don't have to use salt, which is very damaging to the environment, but you can actually heat them. You can use it to store energy. But what I'm really excited about, for some people, it might sound a little, impossible, but it's free energy. The possibility to take energy out of the air around us, out of this energy field. And I've seen a few, well, I've not seen it in reality, I have to admit, but I've seen a few videos of devices which help to harvest this power, which would be one of the best sources. Very clean, available everywhere. You can have a decentralized energy system in a very near future, and it's very affordable without any damage to the environment. So that's still my hope for this century, that we rediscover free energy and make it available to everyone.
Florian, I really like your idea of renewable roads, right? Solar roads. This is a really good idea. I mean,
Absolutely.
if a government takes this idea, it means bang on. Thank you, Florian. Kingsley, what kind of investment would you make?
Yeah, so I'm actually interested in the air energy. I actually went somewhere with my son and my wife last 2 weeks, and I saw them using air to generate energy in Japan, and that was actually in Ariake in Tokyo, and I was so impressed with it. Like, this is the way to go. If we use what is around our environment to create energy that is good, that source of energy that we are not looking at is water. We have the ocean, we have the rivers, we have the flowing things that we can use, tap into the environment to save the environment. Nature has given us everything, so I'm investing into hydro energy, which I believe is very clean. I also believe in using air. Solar panel, we don't have a choice in developing countries because that is what they can afford right now. So I do believe that investing in solar panels or solar energy in developing country would be a way to go for them right now. They can improve later. So countries like Nigeria, countries like South America countries, we need to take the cheaper version of that first. So I invest in that too. So that's very important for us, that we put everybody on the table to understand that we need to grow together, not just one country or one region. Every country in the world need to grow to make it succeed. Otherwise, the carbon monoxide from that side or the bad things from that side is going to come back to us.
So Kingsley covered hydro energy and wind energy. Florian covered the solar roads. Tushar covered ESG goals. And Gary, what kind of investment would you make?
Well, there's some interesting battery technologies like lithium fluoride batteries that last up to 6 times longer than lithium ion. So it's one thing to produce the electricity. It's another thing of how we're going to store it. So we've got to dramatically increase the capabilities of the battery. So I'm interested in battery technologies that can store. I'm interested in all kinds of innovations and efficiencies in solar, anything around that. And as Kingsley said, other ways, there's a lot of energy that flows, and being able to tap into that, be that wind or the oceans, et cetera, to be able to tap into it. And the good news is that I believe that we are in the right position at the right time with this whole pandemic. People have looked at the planet a lot different way. We've had a chance to reflect and understand that we can make an impact. So it's a good time for it.
Thank you, Gary. So which brings us to the next question. So with clean energy accessible to all, what are your thoughts on shared energy platforms? How blockchain and AI and other different technologies cutting edge technologies can come into play? So let's start from Florian.
Yeah, I think it fits together very well. You know, the idea behind blockchain, or the underlying thought, is decentralization. And that's the same thing we have to do in our energy system. Decentralization in a smart grid. So, and the solar is a good example for decentralization. That's an energy source that's available to everyone, that anyone can use. They can install solar panels on their roof, on the roads, everywhere, and become a provider for electricity. And then this is energy is shared. So the sun is always shining somewhere on the planet. You know, if you share the energy across the planet, then there's always enough energy available to us. So like all the other good examples of sharing economy that have increased or thriven in the last years, well, like look at Airbnb sharing, Uber, Airbnb. It's all about sharing. It's not about owning things. It's about decentralization of sharing resources. And that's way more efficient than owning, and way more also reliable than a centralized model. Like in a centralized model, you have a power outage, power plant goes down, and other areas out of power. In a decentralized world, that doesn't happen. You know, there's always the sun shining somewhere. There's always solar panels providing energy to the system. So I think the decentralization that the blockchain is introducing fits perfectly with the decentralization of our energy grid that we are seeing right now, and especially coming up in the future.
Kingsley, what are your thoughts?
Yes, I think there's going to be collaborations across the board, because what blockchain really does is marry projects together. We have never seen a time where a NASA expert or an AI expert or a commoner like a farmer in India or Africa collaborate more than now. So I see people coming together with different ideas and working together to make this happen. Whether they are from Africa, they are from South America, they are from America, they are from. The aim is to make it work together, because, like in your share, they share for somebody else. So sharing is going to be collaborating with countries. This is not an individual change. I think we need to embrace countries to come together and make it work together. So that would be the best thing for everybody, to come together and find a way to participate. Otherwise, it's just going to be every man for himself, and platforms fighting with other platforms. No, they should actually collaborate to make it better.
Gary, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, what was the question again? Can you reiterate it?
So yes, what kind of investments, and what with clean energy accessible to all, what are your thoughts on shared energy platforms?
Well, I mean, the situation is, Florian was right about, that's the decentralized approach is right on target. And, that's again, one of the lessons that we've learned, right? And through this digital transformation, that we do need to be able to share, and we got to do that sooner than later. The challenge has been regulations. I mean, part of the problem with all this solar is that there's so many regulations that has impeded it. It's not that they couldn't do it, impeded it. The other thing is, a lot of the grid infrastructure worldwide is outdated, right? So the power grids are not up to spec. I mean, look at California. Now, now this is the thing that really bothers me. And again, I'm a keep it simple, stupid guy. You've got one of the most advanced locations on the entire planet Earth, and you can't get enough power. What's wrong with that picture? It's toilet paper and power. Now, how can it be? We got quantum computers and you can't even get a roll of toilet paper. You've got an advanced state with about 55 million people that can't get the power. So we've got to go down through and put some money and invest in our grid to be able to understand that we can share and how to be able to do it. Because if you don't have the gates that can open up to sharing, you're in trouble, right? And so let's go back to basics and fix the grid. And sharing should be the way we do it. And I'm sure that will happen in a decentralized approach.
Yeah, I think you're right on point, Gary, with that. The grid is the problem where we need to improve. You need to be smart. Right now, it's a really stupid grid where you have to produce the electricity at the same time you're consuming it. We don't have storage. And that's with the new battery technologies that you also mentioned. That is coming. That is part of the future, to store energy and then use it when you need it.
Exactly.
And from my experience in my investments in solar, the biggest problem was always the regulatory. Now, I invested in a solar plant, and then the Italian government changed the rules or the pricing for solar energy, and that caused the entire plant to just go, oops. And all of a sudden, there was different margins, and everything that was calculated was gone. And this was a 10-year investment, a 10-year plan. So with politics changing on a 4-year schedule and new parties coming in, and then that guy changes something the other guy has just signed off, this doesn't give us this long-term planning horizon that companies need to invest into technologies, to build these technologies, and to upgrade the infrastructure. So I think really politics, in my opinion, are part of the problem, and they need to.
Yeah, the lobbyists from these big groups come in and they kibosh this stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's the problem. They come in and kibosh it. Look at Florida, right? It's crazy that we would just started to be able to have solar because it was outlawed. You couldn't do it. You weren't allowed to have your own solar panels in your house until a couple of years ago, recently. So it's insane. But that's because you have big lobbyists coming in and not wanting to do it and having the political clout to be able to kibosh it. So, it has to change. The good news is with Biden in office in the States, things have already started to shift back into a environmentally friendly environment. So that's a good news. And I'm not saying I'm politically inclined either way. I'm just saying that, I believe we need to heal the planet. And this is a step in the right direction.
I think it's all about continuity. There's no continuity. People, you belong to this party, you belong to that party. When this party goes out of government, then you stop what is happening. But Japan has been able to put this problem behind them. There's continuity. Like Japan, about 5 years ago, was paying 50% for you to put solar panel on your roof. 5, 10, 6 years ago, they were doing that. So they were already encouraging it because they knew that they needed a different source of power apart from the nuclear plants that they have. So continuity, in my opinion, like electricity, those before us came up with electricity, but we have to improve on it. And the next generation have to improve on it. And we are already improving on it by storing it, like Flo said. We are not storing it, but it becomes our responsibility because this is our generation to find a way to store those energies. And then the next generation will also find a way to do something else. I think we are progressing. Let's be happy with where we are right now. We are progressing. There's awareness. And I hope that every government that comes to power continue with what the other government did. And not just, that was their party. I don't need it. No, there should be a continuity. It's very important.
Tushar, your thoughts on shared energy platforms, please.
So, I 6-7 years back, I had gone to Bangalore and I was sitting in venture capital fund's office, Bessemer Venture Partners, quite a good name here. And I saw a company on the wall, the logo of a company, India Energy Exchange. And it just so happened that, I was visiting all these venture capital firms, and on each of their wall, the logo was there, India Energy Exchange. And I said, man, everybody's investing in this company. I mean, then I checked the valuations and stuff, and they were just going exponential. It is just a simple energy exchange, and just because they had this exchange, it was booming. I mean, there was excess supply of energy in some locations. There was a shortfall in another. And hence, the company was just breaking roofs. So I fully agree with the Flo there and Kingsley and Gary there that a lot of it is actually vested groups trying to stop the sharing part, and also governments changing and hence reversing the earlier government's decisions. But just as the gig economy has taken off, and with Airbnb and WeWork, and so the sharing of energy has to take off. So I remember in the Nordic countries, they are nowadays having a power storage kind of place where cycles can be parked, and the energy which has been saved while paddling the cycles, that can be transferred via that mechanism, and it can be transferred to a grid. So that kind of smart solution is something which really, which is simple kind of technology. It is available off the shelf, and it has such a great practical usage. So, apart from sharing energies, we can have these smart kind of technologies also, which are really cheap and available off the shelf, but they do require a lot of push from the government for mass adoption.
Thank you, Tushar. Which brings me to another question. So, when we have all the clean energy and we can produce it for ourselves, do we need to pay for it, or will it be free? Like, we produce our energy, we just buy batteries, we produce our energy and we use it for ourselves, or do we sell it and make some revenue out of it? What are your thoughts for this? Let's start with Florian.
That's a very visionary question. Yeah, the idea of free energy for everyone resonates very well with me. I believe that the basic services for the people should be free, like shelter, food, and energy. However, one of my values and my company's values is efficiency, which means, there always has to be a limit. Otherwise, people keep wasting it. So, maybe a good idea to have a certain amount of energy for free. So people will try to, only consume as much energy as is for free. And if you pass that limit, then you have to pay. I see this possible. Right now, in the way our current economy works, I don't think this is something that will be available in the near future. But I also believe in that we will soon have free energy, and free energy means, you need to invest in a device which is hopefully not too expensive. And then, you have a free source of energy, which is pretty much for free. So we're moving forward. I also believe solar investments are paying off. They were installed. Now, sun is shining for free. You don't have to pay the sun for doing what the sun does. So I believe that the price will come down, and that's an important part. Going back to the earlier questions, why is renewable energy threatening the markets of oil and gas? Yeah, because it gets more and more expensive to get the oil off the ground, to extract it from the tar sands of Canada. But the sun and the energy and the previous investments into solar are getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So the prices for renewable energies are going down, whereas the prices for fossil fuels will go up in the future.
Great. Gary, what kind of thoughts do you hold in this area?
It's kind of funny to me because I'm a Nikola Tesla fan, and he wrote a paper called The Dissipation of Energy in 1892, talking about free energy in the ionosphere. So, it's amazing. If I don't know how much you read Tesla, but I've looked at a lot of his patents. In fact, in my other room, I have one of his diagrams for a patent and a letter from him. So I only say that because these are ideas we've had for some time. In a perfect world, it would be great to do it. The challenge is you've got politics. The challenge is you've got to pay for the infrastructure, and somebody's got to pay for it. So I think the idea is very, very interesting to make the world a better place. But in terms of the practicality and infrastructure, I'm not sure that that's going to happen. But it's a great idea. And if you read The Dissipation of Energy from 1892, it'll give you some interesting thoughts, that's for sure.
Great. Kingsley, what kind of thoughts do you hold?
Yes, at the short run, I don't believe that there's going to be free energy. At the long run, there may be free energy, and I don't believe in that. I'll bring Japan into focus again on this. When Japanese make roads, they put a toll gate. Once they make the money that they used to make the toll gate, they make it free. Because otherwise, investors are not going to invest in it. If you are going to tell me that it's going to be free, I would not put my money in there because I want to get my money back. So we are going to invest in the projects. We get the projects going, but we should not be greedy. By the time we get our money back, everybody has getting their money back. I believe we should now allow it to be free. But there should be regulations put in place to avoid waste. Human beings are used to waste. We also have to remember that there has to be a maintenance culture. These infrastructures need to be maintained when they go bad. So we need some kind of revenue to be able to make them work. So there should be minimum, not what you are paying right now, but minimum payment, let's say $1, $2, so that if anything occur, they are able to fix them. We are able to repair them. So at the short run, there's not going to be free energy for a very long time. But at the long run, I do believe that we will get to that point where we don't have to pay for energy anymore. Like Flo said, you have solar panels up there, and after a few years, you have your money back and you're paying nothing for it. So we're going to get there. It's going to take some time anyway.
Tushar, from India point of view.
Yeah, from India point of view, this rooftop has not really taken off because it requires you to be connected to the grid, and the grid is all owned by the government companies, the distribution companies. So it becomes very difficult to do that. Although there are a lot of solar rooftop companies because the pricing has really come down and it is viable to install that on your roof and use it for your own purposes. Like the government says that distribution companies can actually take excess electricity produced from solar rooftop and use it in the grid. But on all practical purposes on the ground, it is not so easy to get that implemented. So while I agree that one can put up a solar rooftop on their house, use the energy, not be dependent, but somewhere a lot of socialism and a lot of liberal kind of things here in India have meant that a lot of things are free. And so I agree with Kingsley there somewhat that whenever something becomes free, the whole economics and the commercials behind it go out of the window, and hence the whole sector goes down. I mean, this happened in solar also, just as Flo said, in India. There was a horde of companies bidding for solar projects. They were coming up left, right, and center. And one day, suddenly, from a pricing of 5 to 13 rupees per megawatt, the bid price dropped below 3 rupees. All the projects, I mean, they went out of the window. These were projects after which serious investor money had come in, and a lot of work had gone. There were long power purchase agreements with distribution companies, but the pricing just collapsed. And so what happened? People started winning these bids below 3 rupees per megawatt, and then using second-hand equipment imported from China, and the equipment which could last less than 5 years as compared to 25 years. So, all these things, there has to be a commercial sense without which the whole sectoral piece doesn't add up. That's as per my opinion.
Great. Thank you. Great thoughts today by all of the panel members. Before we close this show, I have one thing that I want to remind you. We talked about Middle East, we talked about USA, we talked about Japan, we talked about India, we talked about Malta. We left one country, and that is Antarctica, where there is no sun and there is no water, there is only freezing ice. What kind of thoughts would you like to bring in terms of renewable energy to, to safeguard or save Antarctica and its people? So this will be our closing remarks. Let's start with Florian.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, the Antarctica is an amazing continent. I visited it in 2015 or so. Absolutely amazing to see the life there, and an entire continent that has not been touched by men, full of resources that nobody can use, and I hope it will stay the same. And it's still, I'm not so worried about Antarctica because that's a continent that's really protected from the weather and the currents from climate change. We're seeing some changes, but it's not going to be a major effect on that continent. So I find it's pretty safe. We have to worry more about Greenland and the North Pole in terms of the ice melting. But yeah, what we can do is transition away from fossil fuels. So stop burning fossil fuels, stop putting more carbon into the air, and plant trees and change the way we do agriculture to get more carbon out of the air back into the ground where it belongs. And that's what we have to do. So investing into reforestation, that's for me the really big thing in terms of improving our climate. Planting trees not only helps the climate, it also helps regulating the water supply, rains, provides soil, living space for living creatures, increases biodiversity, improves the air quality. So there are a lot of other benefits that we get from planting trees. So I think that's really the two things we have to work on: reduce the amount of carbon we put up into the air, and increase the amount of carbon that trees and plants put back into the soil.
Thank you, Florian. Tushar, you want to say something about this?
Yeah. I just got me excited what Florian said. I mean, so there is a technology where you can use the waves, which and from a tidal and waves energy, you can create electricity. So I just feel that kind of technology can really be used in Antarctica, but things are pretty bad out there with the ozone, the hole in the ozone layer being over Antarctica and Australia. So so things are not so easy out there. That's my little point in between. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you, Tushar.
Yeah, Tushar, thank you. On the good side, regarding the ozone layer, the ozone layer is getting thicker every year. So that's a problem that is improving every year, because we started to, like already in the 80s, we started to stop emitting all these gases that destroyed it. So the situation is actually getting better in Antarctica in terms of ozone. So
very
Great.
nice to hear. Thank you, Flo.
Kingsley, over to you.
I think a rising tide rises all ships. As long as we are taking care of all the other green energies or clean energy, Antarctica will fix itself, because we are the one destroying it. It's not destroying itself. It is what we do, what we emit into the air, that is affecting Antarctica. So by the time we stop emitting those emissions into the air, Antarctica will take care of itself. It's like when you drink, and you stop drinking for 3 months, your liver repairs itself. Antarctica will repair itself when we go back to saying, okay, we are taking care of the planet, we are doing all the clean energy, we have put everything in place. What is going to happen? It will affect Antarctica to repair itself. So hopefully that's what happens. And if that doesn't happen, then everybody will not concentrate on making it a better place.
Gary, what are your
Yes.
thoughts?
Yes. So the impact of what we're doing today, we'll really start to see results, firm results in 20 years, 25 years. But let's look at it in perspective. So there's about 5,000 gigatons of ice is melted in Antarctica. And again, I'm a country boy, right? We keep things simple. That would fill 400,000 Olympic-sized pools. So those are some of the challenges. The good news is I'm encouraged, because humanity, we've been resilient. I believe that we do understand where we are and the tremendous problems occur. And remember, I mean, we're here on this planet for a limited time in terms of our lifespan, but if we don't clean up, we won't have a place to live, right? And Mars won't be like something that we should do. It'll be something we need to do. And and I do invest in space tech companies myself, so we will be going to those other 6 billion Earth-like planets in the Milky Way, and we will start to do it. I mean, there's a reason that all kinds of different reasons that Blue Origin and SpaceX and Sir Richard Branson are looking at space, because we're going to have to migrate to other places. So anyhow, but I'm encouraged that we understand that there's a problem that's a huge problem and it's not overlooked. We're finally to a pace that it's not like it's a conspiracy theory that there's global warming. Come on, it's like simple stuff. The temperature went up 2 degrees. Hello. This is not like, it is what it is, right? 2 degrees Fahrenheit, 1 degree Celsius. So anyhow, but again, that's part of the problem. We got to identify, we got to talk about exactly what the problem is, and then people start to course correct. And that's where we are today. It started.
Thank you, Gary. So these are the thoughts from everyone from our panel of how should we move ahead in this post-pandemic world, and how should we gear up towards using sustainable and renewable energy in a responsible manner, and how commerce and how commercialization and political regulatory boards come into the play to actually streamline the effective usage of renewable energy. So, which brings us to the show today, end of the show today. So, thank you everyone for the show and for your valuable thoughts. We'll meet again tomorrow